Hi guys, today we're here at Stereo in Glasgow.
Yeah, we're here to find out some interesting facts about the venue, so we hope you enjoy.
So how long has your venue been running?
11 years.
It's quite a long time.
Yeah. Does your venue focus on a specific genre of music?
Not intentionally. We tend to work with a bunch of promoters who kind of like bring gigs to the venue, and then we put on our own things. So the stuff that I put on is just the stuff that I like, which is reasonably varied. And then those other promoters will have their kind of like area of interest. I think because of where the venue is and because of the size that it is, it kind of fits with a certain type of event.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it works well with it works well as a kind of mid-sized club, and it works well as a kind of mid-sized or a big small venue, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So it tends to be like DJs, rock bands, experimental stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you think your venue has contributed well to the local music culture?
I think I'd probably frame it slightly differently, in the sense that I think that the venue participates in the local music culture. Okay. So it's not like a really generous thing that the venue's doing, like here, have space or stuff like that. It's just like involved in a network of spaces, artists, audiences that are kind of like working together to that form the kind of like local music culture here. I think that this group of venues, because Stereo is connected to Mono and the Old Hairdressers and the Flying Duck and the 78, and also Harmonium in Edinburgh. I think this group of spaces is a significant element within the kind of like live music culture of the city, and I don't know how long an answer you want.
Doesn't
As long as you want.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things to say. I suppose one is that like making space in a city centre is hard to do, right? Because the property value is really high. So it's like most of the space in the city centre is like massive companies because they can afford to pay the rent to have space here. Mm-hmm. So having a space like this in this kind of location is quite hard to do economically. You need to work pretty hard to keep the doors open. So in a sense, this group of venues is like part of an effort to provide space for people to come and play music. And I think we take quite seriously the role that we play in encouraging or like making a context for local bands and artists to come and do stuff. So yeah, space is kind of important in the like local music culture, and also like these spaces are all vegan spaces, so there's a kind of like explicit connection between them as music spaces and them as vegan spaces, and there's a kind of like political subtext to that. So I think that these venues have been influential in the development of that connection, like between veganism and live music. So there's now a bunch of other venues in the city that also have vegan menus and stuff like that. And I think the profile of veganism has been well served by these venues.
Has the business faced any great difficulties over the years?
I mean, the great difficulty is just staying open.
Yeah.
Because it's like if you come down here on a Saturday night and you're like, oh, there's loads of people here and they're drinking booze, then the kind of assumption is loads of money's being made, like everyone's like there's tons of cash around. But as I was kind of saying, people will come to your venue if it's in a good spot, if it's a good space, if the drinks are cheap, if the food's cheap. Like all these things kind of have to be happening at once. That creates like quite a lot of pressure, because to pay for a space of this size in a location like this, the rent is high, the rates are high, the taxes are high, so you really need to be busy all the time to not close down. So I think the challenges are, what was the question?
Has the business faced any great difficulties?
The challenges are staying motivated enough to be consistently appealing enough to stay open. Other difficulties are to do with access, I think. Like one of the difficulties about the architecture of the city is that it was built at a time where people didn't really care as much whether there was like disabled access to venues, for example. And we, like this room we're sitting in is 2 floors down from ground level, so it's a really hard space to access for some people, and we would like to change that. That's pretty difficult for money reasons, like it's expensive to make changes, but also because it's a kind of listed building and it's been built in a particular way. Same's true for the old hairdressers. It's kind of like the gig space there is up 2 floors from and like a mad wee windy staircase and all that. So yeah, one of the other challenges is access. Like we want to improve access, but it's hard to do.
Yeah. What would you say is the main vision for your business?
To adequately reflect the diversity of the city's music culture, and to continue to try to be accessible to and relevant to as many people as possible. I think the live music industry can be pretty conservative, just for loads of reasons, but some of them certainly financial reasons. So the kind of touring circuit and like that, the whole agent, promoter, gig structure of managing bands' tours and stuff like that is hard to diversify, because it's a reflection of the wider music industry, which is as a reflex pretty conservative in a lot of ways. The vision for the business is to maintain, is to kind of like work to maintain some kind of awareness of that and try and be part of changes to that. I mean, that's hard to do, and it's like big talk, and it's also easy for me to say because I don't have the same job as other people do. Reflective. I think it's our job to respond to the diversity of the city, and I can't think of any live music venue in the city that does that particularly well. These are really exclusive spaces.
Yeah, that's true. So, do you think you have contributed significantly to any of the artists' career that have performed here before?
Not specifically and directly. I think we're part of like a really vibrant music culture, which there are a lot of opportunities for people to kind of like play gigs every night, meet other bands, work out how to go on tours and stuff like that.
Right.
I think one of the reasons that I still live in this city is because there's something about the compactness of the city centre, like everything's right here, that means that everyone's talking to each other all the time. So like I'm talking to other venues, other artists, stuff like that all the time. And I think there's a sense of kind of like shared responsibility and sharing of resources and stuff like that in the city. It's not that competitive as like as a music city. I think that's a really good context for people to learn how to be in bands, play loads of shows, have really good experiences here, and then if it's what they want to do, go and do that elsewhere. So we've got pretty kind of strong and long-standing links with a good few bands who've gone and done big stuff, and I think that in order to develop an artistic practice that's worth anything, then you have to have a context in which you can take risks and try stuff. And part of the reason that Glasgow is, I think, a really interesting music space, music city and music culture is because it's kind of peripheral to the industry. Like the industry's like way over there somewhere and it's kind of like London focused. Glasgow is close enough to it to have some kind of relevance to it, but it's not close enough for there to really be like any expectation that someone's going to like walk in and give you loads of money for being in a band. So there's something about the kind of live music culture in Glasgow and the music culture generally, I think, which is pretty self-sufficient and self-sustaining. So I get the sense that people are doing it because they really want to do it and they really want to learn how to do it better. And I think stereo is like part of that context.
Great.
Does your venue focus more on live music or like over DJ clubs?
It's pretty much
music or
pretty much half and half. So every weekend the night's split in two. You can put a gig on from 7 till 10:30, and then you can put a club on from 11:30 till 3. We kind of try and prioritise both. And I think that's quite healthy because I think clubs as environment, but also clubs as a set of methods and priorities are quite different to gigs. Or like they kind of exist, they're related, but they exist independently of each other, and they appeal to people who like different stuff. So I think having all of that in the same place is a good thing.
What type of audiences does your venue typically attract?
Don't know, people with enough money to go to gigs.
Okay. What has been the most dramatic changes that stereo has gone through?
Don't really know. Dramatic.
Well, yeah, or some changes in general.
I don't know, things don't tend to happen very dramatically here. The change is kind of incremental, so the space has always been changed a bit. Like, we'll change the lighting, or we'll change where this front of house thing is, or we'll change how this corridor is used or whatever, but ultimately the purpose is pretty set and doesn't really change. And the kind of like the space, like the kind of hard facts of the wall, like the walls and ceilings don't change. So the most dramatic changes that happen in here are precipitated by changes that happen elsewhere, like what people like, what kind of music's exciting, stuff like that.
I'm going to change this question because it doesn't really make sense, but like, was it always just a music venue, or like the cafe upstairs, or was it all just happened at once? Like,
it opened as a food space and gig space at the same time. But part of the reason for that is that the 78, I don't know if you know where that is, it's in the West End, or like Finniston, used to be called Stereo, and it was run by people who run this, and it was a gig venue and I think at one point it was a food space during the day and then a gig space at night. But they stopped being able to put on music because student accommodation got built kind of over the top of it. So there was a need to like find another place, and this was it. But also Mono is like a vegan food space and a gig space and a record shop. Excuse me. And so is the Flying Duck. So it's a kind of, it's a model for these venues that goes back ages. And in fact, I think the first one was the old 13th Note, which was on Glasford Street across from where the Polo is. And it was similar, 2-floor space, like pub and eating space upstairs in that venue below.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, that's all we've got.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for